Coming to you live, it's the AutoHub show with Ian and Jeff. Here we go.
So what would your dealership feel like if your entire sales staff was literally on fire, your sales and service staff? They were nonstop all over social media, completely dominating your marketplace. They could do it in 30 days or less and then continue their education to do it for an entire 6 months or a year. You literally would completely take over the entire marketplace and no one would be able to compete with you. And that's what we can do for you. So when you're walking around your community, whether you're at local restaurants or you're going to the gym, if you don't want to be bothered, fine, you won't be bothered. But a lot of people will walk up to you and say, oh my God, I love your social media. Your staff is amazing. We love what you're doing in the community. We want to come buy a car from you. We want to get an oil change at your dealership. Your community is absolutely going to love you. And it doesn't matter what platform you're on. You could be on TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, all social media platforms. You will literally be all over the place. I've traveled all over North America. I've trained Toyota. I've trained Nissan. I've been to driving sales. I've been to Women in Auto. I get hired as a speaker for conferences at universities all over the country. And I can help change the trajectory of your dealership right now. If you click on the link, you can sign up for our webinar. It's live with me, and you'll learn the 7 strategies that you need at your dealership in order to see that success.
Hi, everyone. This is Paul Brobson, the CEO over at Trusted Sale. And if you don't know Larry Feldman at Career Changers, boy, are you missing out. Now, what are you missing, you might ask? Well, for starters, you're missing the world's best trainer. But seriously, what makes Larry a great trainer is how engaged he keeps his audience. I was at a store recently while Larry was conducting training. And let me tell you, nobody wanted to leave that room. I mean, even when they needed a bio break, they wanted to stick around and hear what Larry had to say. The great late Jim Valvano, who said, to me, there are 3 things everyone should try to do every day. Number 1 is laugh. Number 2 is think. Spend some time in thought every day. And number 3, you should have your emotions move you to tears. If you laugh, think, and cry, that's a heck of a day. Well, I can tell you, Larry's going to make you laugh. He's going to make you think. And yeah, every once in a while, he's going to make you shed a tear or two. But one thing I can say, it's a heck of a day when Larry comes to visit. But wait, there's more. There is? Yeah. Not only is Larry a great trainer, but he's also one hell of a recruiter. So if you need people in your dealership, I mean anyone, you need technicians, salespeople, managers, BDC agents, whatever you need, Larry can get you staffed right with the right people and do it fast.
Ways to improve. Every month we want to improve better on what we did the month before, maybe the year before. It's about how fast we can get the cars done with quality work to get it to the front line, because that's where we make our money. And the bottom line is the longer it takes, the more money you spend. We want to get it down as low as possible. Right now, like I said, we're in a great stage. We're at 4.5 days. In recon, we want to know how quickly we can get the cars out of the recon process and to their front line. The average days in recon, and then the time to line are the most important thing to get it. I'm Mike Burrell. I'm Service Director at JM Lexus.
All right, we're live. Here we go. That's supposed to drop it. Test.
And this is our disclaimer. Go ahead, Jeff.
Hello, welcome to the AutoHub show. And of course, our disclaimers, the views and opinions shared here are not necessarily that of Ian Nethercott and Jeff Polo or the AutoHub show, just in case.
So here we go again from Used Car Week, and this is Ian.
And this is Jeff.
And we have a special guest on today.
Larry Felt. Pleasure to be with you, fine gentlemen.
So Larry, I hear you've been doing a lot of traveling, doing the SEMA circuit, and now Used Car Week in another warm climate. What are you expecting from this year's Used Car Week?
I think it's going to be fun. I think it's a great chance to meet other people, whether it's vendors or dealers. Introduce myself and what we do and what the three of us do. I'm really excited and looking forward to it. Plus, I get to hang with you two guys. How damn happy.
Fantastic. So what's your opinion of Arizona versus California last year? What do you think of the venue so far?
I prefer Arizona.
No, nothing to do with the politics at all, I wouldn't assume. No, it's all good.
If anybody knows I'm apolitical.
You know, it's interesting. I was commenting earlier too that the problem last year with San Diego is the conference was secondary to the venue, and you know, maybe it's me because I have the attention span of a gnat, but I was always looking out the window at the cool boats. You know, I mean, here it's pretty, but that's it. You know, it's there's not a lot of other stuff that's taking you over, so you can pay attention to the conference.
The interesting thing, the parallel for these shows, these conventions, is the parallel for me for life. It's what you put into it, what you try to get out of it. You know, if you're showing up here to get out of town or enjoy the weather or do something other, then that's what you're going to do. But if you're really coming here with a single-minded purpose, you want to meet somebody, you want to find out some information, you want to sell your wares, I think you're in good shape, no matter what you do and where you do it.
Well, I think that's the beauty of used cars versus, you know, like the NADA, etc. Is here you got, you know, a lot of people are just that's their focus, and used car people a little more down to earth. You'll see the booths here are not the giant technological craziness there. You know, we walked through today. We saw the VinQ guys, and I teased Danny because I'm looking up, going, "So where's the giant booth?" And then used car people would be a little bit not intimidated, just, yeah, it's too fancy for them.
Too much sizzle, we need more steak.
Exactly.
Oh, wait a minute. You were talking about in Texas, right? An ADA, so that would be
Yes.
all hat, no cattle.
And we had a discussion this morning. We're doing the show a little bit on I guess the interesting twists and turns in the used electric game. As we saw some change last week, but more importantly, being at SEMA this week, it was pretty interesting to see some of these conversions. What's your opinion of what's going on with the electric car game these days, especially on the used front, of course?
I'm going to dial back to my past. We were a Hyundai dealer early on. We got the franchise in 1990 when if you paid people, they wouldn't take a Hyundai. We were given, I think it was 6 or 8 Hyundai Excels, which were carbureted. They weren't fuel injected. Basically, you know, a heavy set guy on a bicycle going up the hill could beat a Hyundai. There was no acceleration. The cars didn't have much going on for them. And then as the cars got better, we had a new problem. You didn't have a competitive lease because the residuals were no good. And then once the residuals got good and they continued to improve their product, they were great. Well, it's the same thing here. Every time Elon Musk makes a move or the attendant companies make a move, and they reduce the residual or they change what the value is going to be, there's some kind of net loss down the road for anybody that's buying, anybody that's trying to sell, because, hey, who's going to compete with Elon Musk? If he decides to lessen what the price is, he's changed the residual and the lasting value. So I think you have to be really, really careful with that and keep your eye on the market because, man, when it's like, listen, if it was 3 years ago and you were a dealer, you were living large. You didn't have that many cars. Your floor plan was 0, and people were desperate to take the car. The price wasn't even secondary.
And you weren't paying because people were desperate to have jobs.
Correct. Now we flipped it, and now the cars that we were waiting for, we finally got. The interest rate is so high that there's people that want to jump off a building onto concrete because of the interest rate and what they're paying. And of course, that filters down to the consumers who it's not sticker shock anymore. It's just insanity where the payments are.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be interesting.
I have to tell you, though, right now, if somebody really, really, really wants a new EV, they better really, really, really lease it.
Yeah.
3 to 5 years, in 3 years, they're going to be worthless. Toyota will be out. Toyota and whomever else will have solid state batteries, and that'll game change.
Well, it's funny that you say that. A friend of mine, it's a truly swag bag shirt there. There we go. We just had them on the show a little bit ago. There you go.
For those of you that can't see behind the lens, Joe had another guy walk by with a
Truly shirt.
Just giving away swag.
Yeah, if you're looking to upgrade your ride on the no cost to be discussed yet You can do that without upgrading your ride. You can just upgrade the audio. Yeah, exactly. So it was funny.
Offensive sound.
Yeah.
Not in the least. So that's why we have a disclaimer.
But the disclaimer usually points at me.
Yeah.
Larry, are you finding a difference in just attitudes and dealers today versus 1, 2, 3 years ago?
Absolutely. A whole bunch of, when something happens, we can react to it. But when 6 or 7 or 8 things happen at the same time, it's a little hard. It's like I always say, if you have a customer and you're a car salesperson, you need to figure out exactly what the problems are and handle them one by one. Because if there's 4 of them hanging out there, it's so confusing for the customer, they can't possibly make a decision. So as we just said, there are more cars now, but the floor plan is insane, which means you have to really pay attention to what your stair steps are, what your costs are, to make sure your guys, even if they have to be spiffed, are selling the older models, not the new ones. The customers are dealing with ridiculous interest rates. I believe that we have set crazy world records for credit card debt, which means that where people were normally paying for something cash out of their paycheck, they're now charging it. And we all know that that's something where you're going to have to pay the piper. It's why they use chips at a casino instead of money. It doesn't seem as realistic till you wake up broke.
Yeah.
I think between and you have another problem, which is interesting as a recruiter. People made so much money for a while there that now they're waking up going, I'm not making as much money. Maybe I don't want to do this anymore. So when you talk about the non-commensurate pay, at the same time, the payment, you would think if the payment was higher, everybody'd make more, but that interest rate tends to throw a wrench into everything. So I just think dealers right now have to really, really pay attention, dial back in. I'm not saying this to be self-serving. They got to train better, and they got to get back to focusing on the
Career
customer.
Changers USA.
What this gentleman said.
Yeah. Well, the thing is too, and your people now, back during the dark days of 2020, everybody says, I'm never going to the office again. I'm never working. I'm going to buy that really cool place way out in the middle of nowhere for low money. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a new house on it. And all of a sudden they're going, the mortgage is coming up for renewal. Or heaven forbid, somebody down here took out a 30-year mortgage at, they weren't giving 30-year mortgages at low interest rates. They were giving higher ones. But they got to renew their mortgage, and all of a sudden they got a car payment.
It's shades, Jeff, of the 2008 housing market.
Yep.
People had a payment that was here, and then it adjusted up to here, and all of a sudden they couldn't afford their house anymore. And that it's not just, it's the old ripples and how the ripples go out and cause big waves. It's all the attendant things. When businesses get hurt, giant business, what's bigger than our business? It affects so many things and so many people around it. It's a little scary, right? You better be paying attention.
Yeah, and if you want to understand the true scale of the car business, and that's not even all of it, but just what we did in Vegas. I mean, the scale of the different businesses within the business, that people focus on car dealers and they go, okay, yeah, it's the car dealer. They're the good and bad, and they're the only ones involved. But when you look at all these other businesses around that business, transportation, electronics, tools, distribution, hardware, software, training, recruiting, there's so many businesses that are touched by it. I mean, when you look at it in that totality, it's really interesting, because historically people just look at it as, it's just the dealer down the road, or it's just that local manufacturer. But yeah, I mean, the car dealer, you're going to see ripples across it. But when you're talking about leasing, I was so happy that I gave that friend of mine advice on a lease to lease it, because electric car, I'm like, if you're going to buy one, lease that thing for a couple of reasons at the time. A, don't know what the future brings, but B, the cost. But also, do you really want that car after 4 years?
And the ability to not get slammed and be upside down in a car.
Yeah.
Only because even if they gave you a reasonably fair deal, with the interest rate so high, you're paying so much more interest for the first couple of years that it makes it really difficult, because they're still upside down. And scary, it's very scary to me that people don't understand that you want to keep your people coming back as often as possible and have them be as happy as possible.
Well, you know what? It was very funny, because I remember not long ago, people were talking about EVs being changing the whole cycle of purchase. And that people, you didn't have to, in a 200,000 miles on an EV was not bad, and because we're all used to this, and now all of a sudden you're discovering this asset you thought you had has dropped in value because you can buy the new one for less, 30% less.
Wait a minute. Can't diesels run for 200,000 miles? And we don't have to give everything we have away to China and completely destabilize the world's economy?
Well, I'm sorry, but China holds the world's total resources for diesel particulates.
Don't you love it when he says particulates? I know Ian got a little excited by that.
What was that line that Rennie Sayhouse did today? When he said that they said was my new algorithm?
I don't know. Can't remember.
Extrapolate.
Scrubbing or extrapolate it? Yeah.
Extrapolate. And they said you got to make that for used car dealers. Oh, scrub. Okay, that's better. But yeah, it's people were saying not long ago that you'd have your EV forever, and here Tesla's riding heat because they're 5 years into their Model 3 and people are getting a little itchy for something different. So I got to tell you though, some of this stuff though, it's almost like a cult because people are going all crazy about the new Model 3. Have you seen the new Model 3?
Looks like the old Model 3 out here.
The old Model 3, except with a little bit rounded bumpers. It was like the new Model S. They got rid of the fake grille.
It's the Pete Townsend who quote, "Meet the new boss, the same as the old boss."
Exactly. But yeah, I think things are. It's different. It's challenging.
Listen, we've talked about this before, and I'm trying to keep it non-political and just business-wise.
No, he's not.
You can't. If you say to somebody, "Here are some extra choices, and if you really would like an electric car, they do have some advantages. They're really fast, blah, blah, blah." But you can't force or legislate. We tried this in America with prohibition. And it's the same thing. You can't say to people, "Here's what you have to drive, and here's what you have to do," particularly since it's so unrealistic in their projections.
Larry, I hate to tell you this, but 87.5% of our audience has no clue what prohibition was.
You mean I can buy a gas car under the table? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge here tomorrow.
Yeah. There's these guys running these hot rods over the border, man. On a border they got gasoline.
Prohibition was one of the interesting, scary parts of American history in the prior centuries, because what they decided they would do is morally they would stop people from drinking. They didn't. All they did was rise up organized crime, have 1 million tap rooms, they used to call them, or bars. But the point was you can't legislate that stuff. If you want to say to somebody, "We're offering you something extra," perfect. But to say, "Everybody that's driving this, you're not driving anymore. Here's what you're driving," even though the cost doesn't make sense, even though in California, they already are saying that they can't handle what they have now.
Yeah, you mean forcing people to buy 100% of something isn't a good idea, especially when people don't want to buy 20% of something?
No. The only time it makes sense for everybody to work with one thing is what Jeff said earlier. I'm just quoting him: "Career changer USA."
There's a little bit of a prohibition on that. Larry, I can't say it because he's coming in such trouble. Moving right along, things are changing. There's all sorts of. I read a poll today that Ford is again the lowest, is rated lowest amongst their dealers for dealer satisfaction.
Interesting.
And part of Joe Boris just posted something, even tagged us. You got to look.
Oh yeah. Wow.
And asking because Farley made a couple comments that's pissed a lot of dealers off, and because they forced them to spend $1 million to upgrade their dealerships, and now they got lots full of Lightnings and Mach-E's, and you got people that paid $125,000 for a Lightning 6 months ago, and now that same Lightning they can get with low interest financing for $99.
Concept was flawed from the beginning. You can say to people, "Here are more choices." You can't say, "This is what you're buying." It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Well, they all. It's very funny. Of course, part of the thing that he posted was the fact that they're all now going into the North American standard charging, which we all know is Tesla, and which probably was their plan from the get-go, and because they tried to chase Tesla, but being that we're going to do this, and Ford's going to go direct to everybody else, and But then again, we're at used car week, so we should talk about used cars. The prices of used Lightnings.
Used cars has always been the key because you can control it. You could figure out what you were trading. You could buy cars off the street. Depending on how far or behind you were at the auction, you could figure that out. It's always been an important variable because it's controllable. Listen, when the chip shortage hit and factory shut down, what are you going to do? Build a new car in your backyard? But you can still approach your neighbors, other people. There's buying centers all over the place that go out and find the vehicles. And the used car business, it's just a fun business. I bet you there's more characters in the used car business than the new car business.
Oh yeah.
I think the whole thing lends itself to a more open, more fun structure. You don't have the factory other than with the certifieds leaning over your shoulder, because every dealer at one point has thought about his OEM. Are they my partner or are they my adversary?
Really? They're not on your team?
Well, the answer always seems the last page of the manual says take more units. It doesn't matter what the problem is. Take more units.
They announce the latest, the greatest car. People are lining up for it. You know, in the case of Hyundai, you know, in the old days of the Hyundai, well, even now, you know, you want a Kona electric? No problem. By the way, we got a bunch. What's the little Hyundai? Not the Elantra. The
Ioniq 5?
No, you know, Ioniq 5 is the one they want.
Yeah.
We have a whole bunch of real manual transmissions that, for some reason, we built without air conditioning. You got to take 15 of those.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the used car side of the house, and I know we were talking about this at NIADA this year, but also on the show today, was basically the fact that you have characters, but more importantly, you have freedom as a used car dealer. You're not really dealing with the same limitations, but more importantly, you're able to try things that maybe a new car dealership couldn't try because...
You got to spend $3 million to upgrade your building so you can sell used cars.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I remember talking to a dealer many years ago, and he was a Mitsubishi dealer, I believe, and they were giving him a lot of grief about, you know, how he was operating his his new car franchise, Mitsubishi. And he said, well, I think I'll go back to selling used cars. You can come pick up your Mitsubishis.
Mitsubishi is an absolutely fabulous car. Anybody that tells you different has driven Mitsubishi.
Yeah.
But this is a classic example. We were briefly a Mitsubishi dealer. They almost went out of business with the 000. They lost hundreds of millions of dollars. They were financing chairs and inanimate objects. So they decided to come back. Did they come back with a 4-door midsize car? They came back with the Eclipse.
Yeah.
And you're not going to rebuild Chevy off Corvette. You're, as great as the Supers, you're not going to rebuild Toyota. So again, a lot of these companies seem to be out of touch. We all made fun of Bud Light.
Mm-hmm.
Because they basically destroyed their brand and lost billions for no good reason.
Yeah.
They for no good reason. Well, with a lot of these companies, you kind of scratch your head and wonder who's in control. I mean, you mentioned Ford. Ford lost, I think it was $4.5 billion on their electric production. For what?
The trouble is, what we don't know is how much they got subsidy from the government for doing this in Canada. Great big controversy. Volkswagen.
What's a weirdo?
We're here till 4.
Okay.
We're half past 4.
Yeah, so I think we got to wrap it up.
Volkswagen agreed to build a plant in southern Ontario. The federal government gave them $13 billion to build a battery plant in southern Ontario. Stellantis was going to build a plant. And they heard about this, and they said, no, we're not going to build it because you're only giving us like $1.2 billion. So unless you give us more, we're not. They said, we're not giving you more. Next thing you know, the province of Ontario steps in and says, we're going to give you more money. Then they clicked up to $7 billion.
It was $1.5 billion. You guys only gave me $300,000. It was Canadian.
$3 Canadian, which is 6 cents American. Yeah. Larry, we got to go.
Yep, we got to go. We got to. Yep.
Used up our time.
Yep.
Larry, thank you as always. Thanks for your support and everything.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Oh la la. What? Thanks for joining us. It was a great show, and follow us anywhere you would like on your favorite podcast, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and of course on our YouTube, or subscribe to our own channel.